Okay, show is beginning right now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to eLearnChat, where talk is knowledge. I'm Rick Altan, and this is a good show on all sorts of things, presentations and PowerPoint. And joining us is our co-host today in Boca Raton, Dawn Mahoney. Hey, Dawn, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm excited about our show today. Got this all put together. I'll let everybody know that I'm using my phone, so you're getting a very bad photo of my neck. But that's life.
And in fact,
It's all that girl vainness that goes on.
hey, Dawn, would you like to introduce our guest today?
I'd love to. And Rick, by the way, your camera shot went away, and we're looking
At you.
at Time Machine Backup.
No, it's fixed again.
I am happy to introduce our guest today, and it's his birthday, so we have to do something special about that. But I'd like to welcome Rick Altan to our show of BetterPresenting.com and the Presentation Summit.
Thanks,
Welcome
Dawn, and
to the
thanks,
show.
Rick. And to think I could be out on the golf course right now or something.
I don't know. Is it kind of cold up there?
Oh, no, it's going to be 70 degrees today in
Oh,
the Bay
you've got
Area.
good weather. Okay, because I know it's been chilly up there recently. We're in Southern California, and it's been a little bit chilly down here too, which is kind of unusual for this time of year.
It's chilly here, too. It's not beach weather, so
Really, in
I'm a little
Boca?
frustrated by that.
I thought in Florida it was always about 100 degrees no matter what time.
Well, it's
In
not
the
beach
50s
weather
in the
here,
morning
but
this
it
week.
is golf weather.
That's true.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'll probably play on Friday. I'm
Okay.
hoping to.
So Rick,
So
tell
you're
us.
going to talk with us about all these fabulous things that you do. I'm ready to get started.
Uh-oh, that's dangerous.
What would you like to talk about first?
Well, golf, but we already have. You tell me where we should go from there.
Well, do you want to talk more about death by PowerPoint and your work with trying to get clients away from being so tied to the bullet points, as it were?
Well, that is a topic that just about everybody can relate to. The other day I gave a seminar, and there were about 55 people in the room, and I started by asking, how many of you have heard the expression death by PowerPoint? Everybody's hand went up. I said, how many of you have witnessed death by PowerPoint? Every hand went up. I asked, how many of you have committed death by PowerPoint? That one wasn't so easy. And the people in the front row, they didn't know what to do. They had to sort of like look, carefully behind them. Who else is raising their hand before I do? And it's really a fascinating phenomenon that the tool that we use in the presentation community is the object of such derision. That phrase is in everybody's lexicon.
I know.
And to the point where it affects our own reputations as users of the tool. There is no other software program I know that is considered a generic the way PowerPoint is.
Right.
You don't say, let me go create an Excel. And people say, oh, you use Word? Oh, you have my sympathies. That doesn't happen. But it happens with PowerPoint. It happens in the presentation industry. And, so I wonder why. And one of the reasons that I've concluded is that the software is just too easy. Yeah, this is not like Excel or Access or programs like Photoshop. Those programs really are hard. People know they need help, but I think PowerPoint's the easiest program in the Office suite to start using. I've said this many times. Both of my daughters started creating slides when they were 10 years old. And Microsoft would have you believe that's a good thing. I would tell you it's a really bad thing because people declare themselves proficient long before they should. And unlike Word and Excel, this is a craft that's practiced in public.
Right.
So that starts to explain why our reputations all suffer at the hands of the tool that we use.
And by the way, most of the people who go around saying PowerPoint sucks and PowerPoint's lousy and we hate it are usually the worst PowerPoint users.
Yeah.
I mean, by far.
Funny how that is, huh?
It is. And I think we've all done death by PowerPoint at one point or other. I know I've been the victim of it quite a few times. And you know what surprises me is at least for 15 years, if not longer, people have been saying, don't use bullets. get images out there, do things, talk to your PowerPoint, don't talk at it, or don't let the PowerPoint talk for you.
Yeah.
And it's still a lot of bullets out there.
Yeah.
Corporate presentations are scary.
Yeah, No, there's a whole culture around that just sort of creates the sense that you're required. First of all, you're required to use PowerPoint. It's not, let's go give a talk and, should we have any visuals? Should we discuss the relative merits of whether anything visually should accompany me? That conversation never happens. You're expected to create slides. You're expected to use PowerPoint. And generally speaking, the people that use the software do not have a background in graphic design. Very few people come to presentation from a background in the arts. We have backgrounds in sales and marketing and communications and various other things that, for which we're quite well qualified. But very few of us have a background in design, and yet we're asked to design presentations practically on a daily basis. So you couple that with this requirement that you use PowerPoint, and it just ends up being in a very knee-jerk, unnatural fashion where you sit down at the computer, and of course that's the problem right there also, is that generally people start their projects on the computer. They sit down, okay, so here I am, I'm in front of the computer, I got my hand on my mouse, okay, quick, become brilliant. Yeah, it just doesn't happen that way. That's not the way creative people work. Much better if you leave your office and you can use a cocktail napkin. The veritable cocktail napkin is really the better place to be for any sort of creative project. So you've got these artificial situations where you're stuck in your cube. You're required to use this piece of software. All of that serves to inhibit your sense of creativity around a project that really needs you to think as creatively as possible. So, these are just some of the disconnects that we have in our community.
Well, you also made a great point, because it is easy, but the first thing you see are bullets. And people don't go beyond that. Just go, here it is, they're bullets. That's what I have to use.
Yeah, well, that's just it. You start when you sit down, Dawn, when you sit down in front of PowerPoint, what do you get?
Well, I go to the blank slides and pull out all the bullet point levels in the master slide.
Well, so you're smarter than most, but the default in PowerPoint is title, bullet, bullet, bullet.
Right.
That's it. So I don't know about you, but I don't know too many, good, meaty, complex ideas that can just be automatically honed down to title, bullet, 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 and yet millions of times a day people try.
Well, I like when they get down to like the fourth or fifth bullet level. Those are really good. And you're 60, 70 feet away or 100 feet away from the screen going, I have no idea what's on that screen, but it looks good.
Yeah. No, it's
well, and then you have the presenters that always say, well, I know you can't read this.
Yeah.
But they leave it in there anyway. That's my favorite presentation tip.
That's one of the telltale signs of death by PowerPoint, when the presenter has to say that. No, you can't see this, but let me tell you what it says.
10-point font and, in a big ballroom.
Yeah.
And a huge screen, and they stick with it, by God.
That's right. That's right. But, in many cases, again, I feel I don't want to blame these people. In many ways, I want to sympathize with them because again, they're caught up in a culture where they're required to do this, and they have not been sufficiently trained for it. Dawn, you may remember I don't know what if it was the year that you were at the conference. We took a survey. We asked everybody in the conference a very simple question. This is the Presentation Summit I'm referring to, our annual conference. We get about 200 people there each year. They come from all over the world. They're arguably the most vested people in the entire community. They take 4 days out of their life, spend a couple $1,000 to come spend the time with us. And we asked one year, how much time did you spend learning PowerPoint? A very simple question. How much time did you spend learning the software that's at the core of your profession? Well, just about everybody said less than an hour.
Wow.
And a few people said 15 minutes. And this gets back to what I was saying earlier. The software is just too darn easy, and people declare themselves proficient long before they should. And then they're then their bosses say, "Oh, well, you know PowerPoint, good. Okay, why don't you go give that talk next week?"
Right. That's
this is
instructional
arguably
design.
the first impression of the company, the sales call in the boardroom, and people are going out with sometimes no more than 60 minutes of training on the tool. And even if they had years of training with the tool, expertise with the tool does not necessarily translate into an ability to craft a message and deliver it with impact.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then you have the issue that
it's ubiquitous, but it's much maligned.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, we can't live without it, and we can't live with it.
Now, Rick, have you seen some of the? There's some really funny videos on YouTube on Death by PowerPoint. I think my
Yes.
favorite is the. What was it called? The Ajax 1000 or whatever it was. The guy's doing a presentation. There's 4 or 5 people around the table, and I like the manager guy at the end. Oh, why even fake it anymore? He just puts his eye blinders on and just goes to sleep in the middle of the presentation.
Yes.
That's a good one. That's
That's a good one. There's several really good ones out
Yeah.
there. Yes, and of course Dilbert. Scott Adams became famous
Yeah.
for his Dilbert strip and the corporate culture that they lampoon in that strip.
Yeah, in fact, there was a
Right.
Dilbert one. Do you remember the Dilbert? There was one early on with Dilbert where Dilbert walks in and goes, I'm going to change careers. I'm going to become a multimedia expert. And he walks off. The next frame, it says 3 hours later, he comes back in and goes, I'm now a multimedia expert.
Yeah, okay, there it is. In a
then
nutshell,
the
right
screen
there.
is all you
That
need
was
is
it.
Twitter.
That's what you just said. I mean,
You are what you declare yourself to be.
That's right.
Yeah,
And they
so
get
to
business
get
cards
back to the
printed up
issues
and
that we
that'll-
have, why does everybody put bullets up there? Why? Because just at the risk of oversimplifying, because we simply don't know any better.
Right.
And if you started with some very simple axioms, so here's one that I like to give out. A good presentation is made up of 3 things: what you say, what you show, and what you give. Okay, so there's no rocket science there. What you say, what you show, and what you give. Now, ideally, those should be 3 separate things. But when we become beholden to PowerPoint, often it all becomes the same thing. And now you have a problem because you're just not connecting with your audience now. You're writing stuff out, you're showing it, and when you show complete sentences on screen, it is almost impossible to not read it. And that's one of the issues that we have. People who are well-intended still just get into trouble when they are confronted with fully formed thoughts that are projected. Because it's very difficult. I mean, Don, try it sometime. Try putting up all these complete sentences and not just reading them. It takes an extremely
Right.
disciplined presenter. So if we could just separate out those 3 tasks, we'd all be better for it. Even if we don't go take another 5 minutes of training with the software, if we could just separate into those 3 tasks and deal with each one of them one by one, we'd be better off.
Well, I'm a huge proponent of the conversation about cognitive load, and several of the people that watch our show are e-learning developers and designers, and it's the same issue whether the audience is live in front of you now or they're viewing this information later. We still need to be careful how we present the material so that people can retain it and learn from it. Whole sentences on screens in front of a presentation, the people's eyes are naturally going to be drawn to those sentences and follow along.
That's right. Yeah.
You've given up your opportunity then.
Yeah, and they're going to read it faster than you can say it. They're going to be done
Right.
long before you are. Then they're going to be wondering what the hell they're doing there, and they're going to ask if you could have emailed it to them instead.
Right, and it is exhausting. That's why I think going to conferences and sitting through presentations and sessions and all of that is so exhausting because we're engaging all of our senses at once.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we're
there's
not
another
able to
issue too,
focus.
and another issue that they lower the lights. So you got the lights dimmed, you're watching bullets, and many times the speaker is not a speaker who knows how to talk in front of people, and they're reading the bullets and they're droning in a very
Yeah.
monotone voice. And I've actually fallen asleep at a couple of presentations in a boardroom where I was gone. One in particular I remember was an Arthur Andersen Accenture presentation years ago to buy a software package. It was an ERP package. And I remember I don't remember when I went out, but when I woke up, I noticed everybody else at the table was out. I went, oh my gosh. Our whole team of 5 that were in there for the demo were gone.
Yeah.
And the guy kept going like nothing. I would have at least said, hey guys, wake up. No, nothing. It was just the worst demo I've been into in my life.
Thank goodness for modern day projectors that at least we can keep the room lights up a little bit. It used to be even worse. Mm-hmm. Now, Don, I'd like to ask you, you used a phrase earlier that I could probably ferret out if I had to, cognitive load. That's a good one. Could you tell me more about that?
So cognitive load has to do with how much your brain can take in, that your eyes are seeing, your ears are hearing. You're overloading the ability to focus, essentially.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And we're very guilty of that, especially in this never powering down environment we're in these days.
Right.
The phone is clicking and dinging, and then we're typing while somebody's talking to us. You don't have the ability that you think you do to multitask ultimately.
No, even the teenagers who are much better at it than we, they don't do it as well as they think. Yeah, it's very interesting. You've approached this from a much more methodical and analytical standpoint than I have. What I note from a more layman's perspective is that eye fatigue is the silent killer of presentations. Right. I find that even if you're not north of 45 like I am, your eyes are going to be the first to go. And even today, when we can keep the lights up a little bit, it's still, we ask people to sit and stare at a screen for minutes or sometimes hours at a time. I mean, in a training situation, it might be all day. And usually the eyes are going to be the first to go. This phenomenon, this dynamic really starts to find its feet when we talk about animation and the appropriate use of it and the misuse of it. Because that's another one of my universal axioms. I told you one of them, that if you put complete sentences on the screen, it's impossible to not read it. Well, another one of my axioms is that if something moves on screen, you as an audience member, you have no choice. You have to look. You have to look. And so presenters, once they realize this, and I often will fool them, or not fool them, but I will conduct an experiment on them, where I'll stand off to the side of the room and I'll make sure they're all looking at me while I'll make some rocket ship fly across the screen, and I'll watch all of their heads shift over and then come back. Then I tell them, okay, so now you've seen it for your own, you've seen it yourself. What are you going to do with this information? Now that you know the kind of power you have over your audience, whether they want to give it to you or not, you can command their attention. Are you going to treat them like yo-yos on a string, or are you going to regard this as a sacred covenant that you have with your audience, that you are going to use this power over them wisely, judiciously, and appropriately?
That's funny you bring that up. I saw a presentation not long ago where it was a lot of bullets, but at one point, whoever did the presentation, I'll leave them unnamed.
That'd be good, yeah.
Yeah. Discovered the motion path.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this little ball is making circles around the whole screen for no real purpose. Yeah. And everybody's like going up and down, and it was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. Now, Rick, you say no purpose. However, the presenter, usually when you ask the content creator about this, they will tell you that there was a purpose. They'll tell you that they had good intentions. And usually what they say is that, well, we've been doing this, we're about an hour in now, and I just feel like I wanted to sort of, change the energy of the room, create a little bit of pizzazz. These are good intentions that presenters often have. They're just misguided in thinking that the slides could do that for them when that's their job to create energy in the room. They pawn that off on the technology, That's their job to do. But one way or the other, changing things up, that's often very good, especially in webinars, especially in virtual situations. But they just didn't think it through far enough, and they thought the slides could do that when really it's their job.
Right. Now, what do you think of tools like Prezi? I'm not that much of a Prezi fan. Some people adore Prezi. Other people, I'm one of the other people. I think it's okay.
When you say you're not a fan, does that mean that you haven't really used it much? Or
I have used it a little bit.
And you are sort of
I've used it a bit. It was cute. Cute. I think that's my word for it. It's cute.
It's cute.
It's interesting. I find people who don't know PowerPoint usually don't know Prezi any better, and they make you seasick.
Yeah. Well, just like any tool, it can be misused. The interesting thing about Prezi is the way that the company is positioning it. It's very popular. It's taken on, I think it's like 1 million new users a month. Now, part of that is because it's cloud-based and because the access to it is very simple and free. But part of it also is because it's a very interesting application. I think it's terrific for allowing you to create context. It lets you see the forest and the trees in a way that PowerPoint cannot. And its paradigm is completely different. PowerPoint is slide-based. Prezi is one big canvas. So you take this big canvas and you really get to create on the canvas. Visually speaking, you decide that here's going to be my main point, and here are, I'm not sure if you can see me, you can see if you can see my hands, and here are all the points around the main point, and we can talk about each one of these points around the main point, and then we can focus back in on the main point. We can drill down to any one of these. These all can have sub-points below them. So in a way, it's like thinking about bullets and sub-bullets, but in a completely different paradigm altogether. Now, I think that's legitimate. The issue that I have with Prezi is the way that the company itself has positioned the product. They call themselves the zooming people, and that's because of its signature move. Prezi's signature move is to start out here and zoom in on the smaller points of a topic. And when you zoom in and then zoom out and then do it again and again and again and again, now you are creating a cliche, just like the screeching bullets in PowerPoint. How far back do you want me to go? Just like the ridiculous backgrounds in early websites, just like the early days of desktop publishing when we rounded all the corners and put shaded boxes behind it just because we could. All of these things, when taken to excess by people that just don't know any better because they haven't had any training and because there's no barrier to access, they just misuse, they overuse the tools. Prezi is in danger of that same thing, and that's kind of too bad. I think that the product should be positioned in a different way and trained in a different way.
Now, I was actually surprised that PowerPoint or Microsoft didn't incorporate some of the Prezi ideas. I almost thought they would in 2013, but they really didn't. I don't know. I thought have you played it all with 2013 yet?
Yes, I have.
What do you think of it?
I'm underwhelmed.
Yeah, it's almost 2012, slightly different.
Yeah. I understand though the move to the cloud and the move to tablet computing. I understand the appeal of each of those. But my goodness, to do this at the expense of so many other opportunities that the developers had to improve the tool, I think that's just unconscionable. You look at the animation tool; it has not changed in years. We have a animation painter now. I mean, that's almost it across the last 5 to 7 years. And there's so many things that we could have done to the tool to make it more usable. My goodness, I mean, I go back to my graphic drawing program. I'm a Corel guy. I've been using Corel Draw and Photo Paint for, it feels like 150 years now. And 15 years ago, Corel Draw had styles and changeable defaults that PowerPoint to this day still doesn't have? How come in Word you can add keystrokes, keyboard shortcuts to commands, and you still can't do it in PowerPoint? I mean, there's so many things like that affect usability to the masses that have not yet been addressed. And so I think it's kind of a shame that they looked to the to what's hot and what's current at the expense of what's real.
Right. It's almost like Microsoft has a self-loathing for PowerPoint because it's all about bullets. They even hate it. You just wonder. You're right. It's been almost 10 years now without any major, really new, interesting. They have a platform that could do so much.
Yeah.
And it's
true.
I mean, it does okay. I mean, it's still pretty powerful, but
what bothers me is that those of us that use it hours upon hours upon hours, we just have to do so much clicking and so much mousing to the point that repetitive stress injuries are going to be a very real risk for us. When just a little bit of automation, some a simple scripting tool, even just being able to use the tab key to move through fields.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, stuff that's just so expected and standard operating procedure today has not made it into the program.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know if
true. And then there's that whole thing about switching gears here, the use of gray. There are so many people overusing the color gray these days in their presentations.
Really interesting. Why do you suppose that is?
Even when I'm creating in Storyline, a lot of times our designers will specify the player to be gray or have a gray lower bar at the bottom. And that also is hard on the eyesight, like what you were bringing up earlier. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Don. I'm not aware of that phenomenon. I haven't seen it myself, but now I'm going to be more attuned to it.
Actually,
I'm going to
Rick,
look for it.
If you go to a lot of websites, notice how many have absolutely zero contrast. It's gray, it's light blue on gray, light gray on gray, and you can't read the text. The backgrounds, gray is a muddy color for the eyes.
Yeah,
it's one of the worst colors.
Good. It's a blessing that I'm one of the 10% of men who are colorblind, because contrast is so important to me.
Yeah, same here.
I'll make plenty of mistakes, the design mistakes, but loss of contrast will not be one of them.
Yeah, that's like me. I'm the same way. Without contrast, I'm dying.
Yeah.
But by the way, I think it's closer to 50% of men who are colorblind.
Is that? I knew it was.
Yeah, it's quite a large number. In fact, I always tell the story. One time I went to a Men's Warehouse to buy a gray suit. And I left with an olive one, but I didn't realize that. I got home and my wife says, "Why'd you buy an olive suit?" I go, "It's olive. It's gray." The guy told me it was gray. So we had two blind guys who couldn't tell it wasn't gray. It was pretty pathetic.
Yeah, the worst for me, because it's part of my profession, are the little color swatches.
Ah, yes.
Like when you're picking colors on screen, it often is a 25 pixel wide by 20 pixel deep rectangle of a transparent color.
Yep.
And I will often be in front of an audience saying, "Okay, well, I'll pick this one here," instead of trying to name it, because I'll probably screw it up.
Makes a lot of sense in a way.
Well, you'd be surprised how many times I picked pink thinking it was some other color. And, people say, "Why did you make that button pink?" I thought it was orange. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of scary sometimes.
Yeah, you give it to me full screen, I can see it, but the little swatches.
That's right. I'm working on memorizing about 1 million Pantone codes in my head. Oh, that's a 228 dot. It's a scary.
Yeah, well, as soon as you get me to numbers, I'm okay. I mean, Pantone 32B or RGB colors of 41, 136,
That's
180.
Right.
Now okay, I can survive in that world.
It was brilliance in action when they came up with that plan.
Yeah,
that's right. That's exactly right.
It like that way, because everybody's perception is different, right? So what I think of as blue, you might think of as gray or green, or So when I worked in the art department, I learned about Pantone and True Match colors. I was like, this is a brilliant
This
thing.
is awesome. Yeah, I still have my swatch book. I can pull it out of my cupboard right now if you want.
So
I
Rick,
need to buy a swatch book again. I don't have one
yeah,
right
those
now.
are interesting. So Rick, we're almost at the end of the show. We got about 3 more minutes.
Yes, sir.
And what advice would you give to people to get off the bullets, to start using more color?
All right, well, it starts with finding appropriate imagery. It continues with honing and distilling. The exercise that I like to do, and Dawn, it's possible that you've sat in on this before at the conference, I call it the 3-word challenge. I challenge people, can you reduce every one of your bullet points to 3 words or fewer? Now, that might be really, really hard to do. It might be impossible, but the reward is in the attempt, I assure you, because when people try to do this, so many good things happen, starting with they're having to really drill down into the meaning of the words to get every bullet to be 3 words or fewer. Boy, do you have to get intimate with your text. And and invariably they're not able to do it completely, but the effort is just so rewarding because suddenly they have a screen that is devoid of all the flotsam that was there before. And even if they go no further, they've created a slide that's going to be a better result than it was. Of course, now they can go further. Now, for the first time ever, perhaps, they have an opportunity to think like a slide designer. All these people that tell me that they're amateurs and that they're no good at designing slides, who knows? Most of them, who knows if they have any instincts toward good slide design? Most of the slides they've been saddled with afford them no opportunity whatsoever to ever be able to think like a slide designer. Now, after the 3-word challenge, you have the first opportunity in many cases to do this. And in many, often it's no more complicated than now, going out to a stock photo house or using the ones that Microsoft provides for free, finding some nice evocative visual and sending it across the entire slide. Go from edge to edge and then carve out some area on the slide where you could now put a simple text message, because that's what you have now, is a simple text message. Maybe drop it behind a semi-transparent black shape so there's sufficient contrast, and you now have a slide that is going to vibrate at a completely different level. When you can blend evocative imagery with simple text messages, you are now creating an experience that is going to be completely different than 99% of all slides and therefore of all presentations today. And it just starts with that task of honing and distilling the text portion of the message.
Yeah, that's great advice. And Rick, where are you going to be? Are you going to you're doing Presentation Summit, I know. That's later on in the year, correct?
Correct. For those in California, I'm doing 1-day workshops in Northern California and in Southern California in April. Okay. And betterpresenting.com can get them information about both of those and the summit in September in Fort Lauderdale.
Sounds great.
Also, you can find Rick on YouTube with little chats.
Yeah, some really good stuff there.
I've got some sprinkled throughout there. Yep.
Yeah, it's great
well,
stuff.
Rick, appreciate
I'm so
you
glad
coming.
you were here today.
Yeah, especially on your birthday.
As am I.
Happy birthday again.
Thanks. Good way to spend it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did. Happy birthday. Consider yourself, you have a cupcake coming.
Oh.
Very good.
Cupcakes are good.
When I see you in September.
Thanks a lot to both of you. Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. And hang in there for a quick moment,
Thank
Rick.
you.
And we're going to end the show right now. If you're watching in the chat room, thanks for being there. And if you're watching the recording, please subscribe. Give us feedback. Thanks. Have a good one, everyone.